of a shot of winning. We can beat anybody in the world, and I think we're going to win next Sunday.
And welcome back to the New York Jets Atlantic Flight Podcast. It's an OTA special. Got a guest with us today. He's been on a couple of times before. It's our friend from the other side of the pond. In fact, Southern Carolina, if I do remember rightly. It's DT, Dylan Tereman. How you doing, Dylan?
Gus, I'm doing well. Early morning, got the coffee ready, but Jets football is happening on the field, and I couldn't be more excited.
I can smell it. I can smell the grass. I can hear the crack and the pop of the pads, and it just makes me want to wish for proper football. But we've got OTAs in the bag, haven't we? And it's been a pretty interesting week, it has to be said, hasn't it?
Interesting for sure. We only had one practice open to the media, but we got a lot of news out of those days. But yeah, there's tons of positivity to break down. Cautiously, if I might say.
Yeah. Before we get into the actual OTAs itself, we've got a little bit of roster moves and an injury update as well. Yep, we are the Jets, so we will be talking injuries already. Special teams trade. The Jets actually traded special teams ace Irv Charles to Seattle Seahawks in exchange for a conditional 7th round pick. I don't think this was a surprise, was it? When you consider someone like Arian Smith, who at the back end of last year suddenly became quite the special teams player under Chris Banjo, who doesn't. He looked really good, and if he gets a roster space, it could be for that reason. And obviously he's a wide receiver, so we'd be on the depth. When that started happening, I didn't think Irv Charles would be back anyway. But Mooj, he's done it again. I mean, Irv Charles could have just been cut for nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking at 3 specific players that fit that mold, Irv Charles being the latest. Derek Nandi, when they realized they didn't have a use for him last year. Justin Fields, when they clearly realized there was no future for him with the Jets. And now Irv Charles. Guys that probably would have been cut otherwise, that another team was willing to give up a minimum of a day 3, conditional pick, but you still get something out of it. I don't even know if Irv Charles is going to make the team in Seattle, to be quite honest. And reading the tea leaves of what his post was after he was traded by the Jets, saying out of here, it felt like he didn't want to be here anyway. So I'm okay getting rid of any player that truly doesn't want to be part of this rebuild, and also getting a trade pick back for him. I mean, it's good job by Mooj. Now it's a 7th round pick in 2 drafts from now. Who knows what the conditions are, but to get anything out of a player that doesn't want to be here, that wasn't going to make your team, speaks to good GM work.
Absolutely. It's just incredible how this guy just seems to operate, and he's got the ski mask back on and managed to pick something up again. It's just absolutely incredible. It just, every time that there's some kind of roster move and Mooj's name comes up, I just start smiling instantly. It's just like, well, what have you done now? Who have you hoodwinked now? And whether we get something or not. I mean, if he's cut or something, we don't know what the conditions are, so we might not end up getting anything. But to actually have something, the chance to have something, is just top draw GMing. Kicker carousel. We've got another kicker. No puns here. We all know them, but they've all been done before. We signed Pro Bowl kicker Young-Ho Koo with sideline Cade York, who's got a groin injury. While we've got Lenny Krieg, he struggled. It was very, very windy, which we'll get onto in the OTAs this week. But what do you think? Young-Ho Koo, he is probably going to be the kicker at this point going into the season.
That's what I would assume right now. An unfortunate injury timing-wise for Cade York, because he was the veteran on the roster at the time. But looks like he'll only miss a week. Hopefully he'll be back into the mix next week. But based off the one practice and the tweets that we saw about Craig and Koo, it definitely seems like Koo is going to be our kicker for the immediate future. Things can change between now and August, of course, but you like seeing him go for 4 for 4 in practice. Craig, I believe, was 2 for 4 with a miss off the upright from 47 yards. So you want your guys to hit their 45 pluses in this league. Young-Ho Koo is not a perfect kicker. That's why he was a free agent to begin with. He infamously kicked the ground on a field goal attempt while with the New York Giants and completely, not Charlie Browned the football, but missed the football. And, you want to be able to get the best version of Younghoe Koo back when he was with the Atlanta Falcons. But yeah, as of right now, I just have blind faith that Chris Banjo, the special teams coordinator, can make anybody work at those positions: punter, long snapper, kicker, return man. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but I don't know if the conclusion is reached yet with kicker.
Yeah, it's baffling how we let the other guy go last year, and we've ended up. I know it was a money thing, but we've now got Younghoe Koo, who, and you just mentioned there Atlanta. In my opinion, I think he's more of a dome kicker than he is an outside kicker. And as we know, MetLife, the winds at MetLife, they are not kind for kickers. So I'm kind of hoping that somebody else springs free, maybe like another Mevis that springs free. If Mevis was in camp now, I think there would be a good chance that he would have been the starting kicker.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of ironic how Nick Folk, our last year's kicker, getting up in age, decides to go to Atlanta to kick in a dome in the warmer weather for most of the year against, the Carolinas and Tampa Bays of the world. So it was interesting that you lose a kicker to a dome team and then you get a kicker who notably played a lot better in domes in Younghoe Koo.
Yeah. How would you feel about going into the season with Younghoe Koo as your kicker?
I don't mind it. So I'm not looking at this season as every single position needs to be hammered down, shut, and perfect going into the season. Unlike, let's just say 2023, right? We had Aaron Rodgers. We didn't have a backup quarterback. Our kicker actually helped us that year and then failed us the next year. But if our kicker situation isn't perfect in 2026, I'm okay with it. Just like backup quarterback, which we'll probably get into. Like, these positions don't need to be perfectly ironed out this year. And the expectations being low probably helps that, but you want to have a kicker you can trust and believe in. Don't know if that's Koo. Don't think that's Cade York either. So August cutdowns, when they get down to 53 men across the league, that's going to be where I'm looking like, okay, who is that possible Harrison Mevis who becomes available?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you there. None of these guys are filling me with hope. As I say, the wins. And when you do have someone like Nick Folk, last year it was so refreshing, wasn't it? The extra point. I'm not even bothering. My nerves. I've got no nerves when you're kicking the PAT. And he's rolling out for a 40-yard field goal. I've got no nerves. He's rolling out for a 50. I think he did a record as well. Was it a 56-yarder? Was it 53-yarder? Last year.
Against Atlanta in the rain. Yep.
Yeah, in the rain, and he'd missed one prior to that as well, hadn't he? I think it was his only miss of the season as well, I think. But he
was incredible for us. But I mean, he had his shortcomings. Of course, he couldn't hit from over that distance. But also, the coaching staff didn't realize the distance that they were sending him out to kick in sometimes. So it was a bit of a wonky situation at kicker last year.
Yeah, so we've done kickers. We've got to talk about this. It's a little bit baffling. I think there is good reason for this. First round tight end, Kenyon Sadiq, he's sidelined for the entirety of the OTAs after undergoing now a minor procedure to repair a hernia issue. We didn't know anything about this. Do you think the Jets knew about this during the draft? They knew about it and they just thought it would hopefully iron itself out and wouldn't require surgery? Do you think it's something along those lines?
Yeah, I don't know if they predetermined surgery or not, but according to Rich Cimini even, this happened last year at Oregon, and he even missed a game for the Ducks because of this injury and then came back and played through for the rest of the season. I don't know exactly what point in the season he got hurt. I would say roughly midway through. So once you got into the pre-draft process, every team was likely alerted through their medical staff and medical checks that this was an issue for him. Now, the positive part of this is the Jets knew about it. They still felt good about taking him. They took him at 16, and they proactively got the surgery done as soon as rookie minicamp was over. Now, he does have to watch OTAs in gym shorts and a t-shirt, which is unfortunate, right? You don't want to take mental reps. You want to take physical reps in June, July, and August. But the reports are he'll be fully ready for training camp, and that's the most important thing to me. We saw Mason Taylor last year miss, I believe, a week and a half, 2 weeks of training camp with an ankle injury. Kind of slowed his growth, right? He may have been able to help out earlier on in the season if those things didn't occur for him. So as long as Kenyon Sadiq is 100% for training camp, I feel good about it. But it definitely was something that the NFL was alerted to as far back as middle of last season for Oregon, I would assume.
Yeah, I'm just to say we didn't hear anything about this. Obviously, you picked up on what happened at Oregon, but it didn't seem to really be an issue, and it wasn't really a talking point, mainly amongst Jets fans, because we didn't think we were going to be taking a tight end in round one. But it didn't seem to be a news feature anywhere if you go back that far. But anyway, hoping Kenyon Sadiq is going to be available in training camp. But as you say, all the news coming out of Florham Park is that he will be participating, which is good news. I would prefer it if they made sure absolutely 100% that he is good to go, rather than he should be good to go, and roll him out there and we know what happens next. So take your time.
Don't let it linger.
Don't
let it linger. Get the surgery done. And have him be as 100% as quickly as possible, because the last thing you want to do is be debating whether or not to do surgery. And then next thing you know, it's August and he's going under the microscope, and, he's getting all the surgeries done and everything. So it's better to do it now. And I think the Jets actually should get a little bit of credit for being proactive about it.
Yeah. In years gone by, they wouldn't have done this. They would have just rocked him out there in a wheelchair and said, "Go on with it."
He would have been labeled as week. He would have been labeled as week to week on the injury report, and we wouldn't have seen him until November 22nd.
On fitness as well. Yeah, that's it. So things have changed somewhat at Florham Park, haven't they?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to bring this up while we're on the subject of health. All the facilities are getting upgraded as well, aren't they? Did you see that story?
Yes, that's a huge thing, because the Jets, and I'm not saying their facility was bad prior to this, but you see the report cards come out, you see that other teams are grading out better, not from like a personal standpoint of like who the humans are in the building, but like, the cafeteria, the locker room, the training facility, the weight room, like they weren't getting the best grades from the Jets in years past. So Woody Johnson, I mean, there's not much he can do to change Woody Johnson himself. He's always going to be Woody Johnson, but he can at least use his money, which he's normally been okay at doing. And he upgrades the locker room last year, got huge praise from the players. They loved it. And now this year, expanding the weight room and performance center 250%. I do think Woody deserves some credit here, as much as I don't like to give Woody credit, but the combination of whether it's Aaron Glenn, Darren Muji, Woody Johnson, all the front office guys coming together, realizing that they had to make these upgrades to become more, I guess, modernized in the NFL, right? I love it. And I think the results are going to speak highly, because of the play on the field should be better. The injury timelines and recovery processes should be better. So I like the little things, and we'll give AG credit here too, of course, because he came in and identified not just the on-field issues of the team. He went into the facility, everything, and nitpicked and tried to upgrade as much as he could. So I do think AG deserves some credit here, but ultimately Woody, coughing up the money to make it happen, deserves a lot of credit, and I think the Jets are going to be a much better team for it.
Yeah, you mentioned AG here. There's obviously at the end of last season, and quite rightly so, I totally get it. There was a lot of detractors for AG. Weirdly, there are still people that want to see him fail, which I just cannot get my head around. But when you look at what AG is actually doing, it's not just about X's and O's on the training field. It's about the backroom staff. It's about the facilities, and he is behaving like a GM head coach, a CEO type head coach, isn't he? And this is going, I think this is going slightly under the radar, in what he's achieving here.
Yeah, I do think that he doesn't get enough credit for this stuff. And obviously the on-field performance is going to overshadow with a dark cloud all of the potential good that he does off the field. But if all these little things off the field help the on-field performance, and then we get an AG who is better with the X's and O's than a Steve Wilkes was last year, or even better than AG was in his last few years in Detroit. If we get the off-field, then we start getting the on-field success with AG. I think a lot of those detractors will come back around, but there are too many fans right now that have a preconceived bias that they don't want Aaron Glenn here, and that's completely fine. That's their choice. But rooting against the team because you don't want the head coach here is a very ass-backwards way of fandom for me. So just root for the guy, and if we start 3-3, be happy. If we start 1-4, then yes, we understand what the consequences will be. But it's so weird to actively be rooting for your favorite team to not win football games, and we haven't even hit the month of June.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. There was one noticeable absence in the OTAs. Joe Tippmann, he did not attend the voluntary sessions, sparking early contract extension speculation. I would imagine that this is going to get done before training camp. Would you?
I would like it to. So the funny part about Tippmann, and I covered this on my channel as well, he was there on Wednesday, which was not open to any media. So they had 100% attendance on Wednesday, the very first day. Thursday, the open media practice, he wasn't there. There was the Sadiq injury, the Cade York injury. So let's say 95% attendance. And then Friday, the third day of OTAs, the New York Jets put out a picture of Joe Tippmann at practice. I'm like, okay, maybe he's not dodging the media or anything like that. He might have had a personal thing to take care of. But the reporting that he wasn't there caught me off guard too. I was like, is this guy holding out or potentially holding out? He was here, now he's not here. Glad he's back, but I was a little worried, and I do think the contract could be something that gets brought up closer to season. And it's so much easier, just like Breece Hall, get a guy paid. Don't let that be a distraction, mentally for that person going into the season. Let them just focus on football and going to be the best, right guard or center for the Jets that he can be. So I was worried that Tippmann wasn't here, but then he did come back, and they posted pictures of him in attendance. So hopefully his attendance going forward is 100%.
Yeah, and we want to keep what's going. I think they've had this is the first time since I don't know when the whole projected starting five that started last year, they actually played all 17 games as well, which was just incredible. And obviously,
in a 3-win. Yeah, sorry. I was gonna say in a 3-win season to have all 5 of your starting offensive linemen play all 17 games. It's such a rare, I don't know what the word is, miscorrelation, because O-line health usually correlates to some sort of success. So to have all of your offensive linemen healthy and only get 3 wins was really frustrating, but you bring back 80% of that line, you swap out John Simpson for Dylan Parham. I think that they're a better offensive line than they were last year. Now health is going to be important, but this is the strength of our team, and having these guys out there as much as possible is very important.
It's funny, isn't it? Because we now look at Josh Myers as being the weak link in the offensive line, whereas maybe 2 years ago, or even the back end of the beginning of last year, he would have not been the weakest link, but now he is being viewed as the weakest link. So we've got an embarrassment of riches on that offensive line. It has to be I'm going to go out and say this. It should be a top 10 unit. Do you think, or am I being too ambitious there?
I don't think it's too ambitious. There certainly will be weeks where the Jets perform as a top 10 offensive line. Now, for the whole season, my expectation is hopefully, league average, maybe top 14. But then, yes, there has to be weeks where you bump up into the top 10 and Breece Hall goes for 125, 135 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, and your unit plays well. And no, I don't think that that's out of the realm of possibility. And it is so funny how quickly the talent kind of changed over the last 2 years, because Myers would have been a the second best guy a few years ago before we got Fashion New Membu and Tippmann in the building. So you like seeing Myers being, I guess, the fifth best offensive lineman, but then the depth behind him as well. I mean, they found a role for Max Mitchell as the jumbo offensive lineman in certain packages. They still brought back Chuks Okorafor on a minimum deal to be the backup right tackle. You have Xavier Newman, who has plenty of starter experience because of what we just talked about and how bad the offensive line has been over the years. And then you still have the rookie Inez Cooper from Miami, who can play right guard for you in a pinch. And I think he brings a lot more from a pass protection standpoint than most rookies, which helps him. So you have 7, 8, possibly even 9 offensive linemen already built into your initial 53-man roster. Now you can pick from waiver cut downs and improve here or there on the margins, but even the depth at offensive line, those guys used to be our starters, and now they're just our backups. So I feel really good about that part too.
And that's so important as well, and that doesn't get talked about enough either. It's fine having your 5 starting O-line going out there, but when one of them has to be spelled or has to get cover for an injury or anything like that, anything long term, you want that next guy up not to be falling off a cliff face to the next guy. And as you've just pointed out there, the guys coming in, they are more than capable of holding their own. And I like what you said about Max Mitchell as well. Every time Mitchell was on, Mitchell is to me is like Andrew Beck. When those guys were hitting the field, something was always happening. Something positive was happening. So, fair play to them. On the offensive line, we talked about this just briefly before we came on because I didn't know too much about him. The Jets have just signed offensive lineman Cortland Ford, and we actually waived a guy that we both like, linebacker Kendrick Blackshaw. He's not going to stick, is he?
I would say no. Now, the other offensive lineman that they signed after rookie minicamp, Landon Young, who has starting experience with the New Orleans Saints from a couple years ago, he has a really good chance to maybe take Chuks Okorafor's spot as one of the depth tackles. So Cortland Ford, 6-year player. He started his college career at USC in the COVID year of 2020, only played 1 game. So he is a 6-year college player, which is truly incredible. 3 years at USC, 2 at Kentucky, and then his final season at UCLA. He played 11 games last year. So not a ton of optimism or hope, I guess, for him or expectations. But if they're going to keep one of the signed offensive tackles that they got in this offseason process, it might be Landon Young. And I was a little bummed that they cut the UDFA Kendrick Blackshaw, the linebacker, because I thought there was a chance, given how thin the depth was at linebacker, that he could possibly make it.
Yeah, I did too. And as you pointed out before we went on, ex-Bama player, and they're traditionally, they rock for us as well. So, yeah, I was sad to see him go. But I have a funny feeling that he's going to be back for training camp. Fingers crossed he doesn't get picked up by somebody else.
Yep.
So let's get on to these OTAs. There were a few standout players. I think we need to start right at the top here. The Chad Pennington 2.0, apparently. I'm not quite there yet. I'm not there on that yet, but a lot of people are getting excited about it. And hey, I'm not going to pee on anybody's parade if you want to get excited about it, but I'll just stopping short of being. We have a ability in this fan base to back up quarterbacks that haven't done anything. But yeah, Cade Klubnik. We've got to start with Cade Klubnik. He's been virtually flawless, going perfect, but 8 on 8 across the 7 on 7s. And 11 on 11 drills. He's regularly connecting with tight ends, and he hit Malik McLean for a deep game. He's threatening Bailey Zappi, isn't he, for the primary backup?
Yeah, I think that Cade Klubnik should get every opportunity to compete for the backup job. Now, there's a lot of context to that 8 for 8 in practice. The 4 for 4 and 7 on 7s, the ball didn't travel more than 10 yards down the field. And like you said, a lot of the tight ends, 2 to Jelani Woods, 1 to Mason Taylor, 1 to Jeremy Ruckert. So you like that he's using his quote unquote security blankets early in his tight ends. And then in the 11 on 11s, he did have a nice big gain to Jelani Woods again, and then a big floater to Malik McLean. So you do like to see that. The thing I like about Cade, and maybe this is a little bit of personal bias because I live an hour away from Clemson and I've watched Cade for a couple years now. I think he just has it between the ears. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be an outright starter in 2027 in the NFL, but you listen to what Geno Smith said to him at the press conference. He said he could spin the heck out of the ball. He prepares like a starter and should have a bright future. You hear him himself talk to the media. He didn't bring up the injuries that he suffered last year. He was asked about it, so not a guy who's just going to go, yeah, I was injured last year. That's why I didn't perform well. He said, no, I was injured and I had to take, extra steps to get to my meetings. And I didn't use it as an excuse. I used it as a way to mature to help me at the NFL level. So I just like that Cade is checking the low expectation boxes, so to speak. He comes running out of the training facility in slow motion with the hair flowing, number 10. He gets all the vibes going. He's the aura bringer at the quarterback position for the Jets right now. And then he goes out and he just does his job. It's kind of no nonsense with Cade Klubnik, and that's what you want. And if he can be a high-end backup for the Jets, they have smashed it. Home run with a 4th-round pick in Cade. So give him every opportunity to lose the quarterback 2 job to Bailey Zappi. And if things don't work as you expect them by August, go find yourself a new kicker and everything should be, or a quarterback 2 rather, like Andy Dalton, and everything should be okay.
So do you think they're going to go through training camp without that veteran quarterback? Or because obviously Russ Wilson was being highly touted is going to be. I think that ship has sailed. There's not a great deal of backups out there now. But do you think we will actually go through TC without that veteran presence, and we're going to let these guys shoot it out and have the chance to win that segment?
I hope it happens because I look at the free agents, right, and I don't want to trade for an Andy Dalton, even though that's like one of the better veteran options. It's like Jeff Driscoll and Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush is just 5 years older version of Bailey Zappi. They're going to have more turnovers than touchdowns. They're going to lose more games than they win. They'll barely be able to get you to 1-2 if they have to play 3 games. So just keep Zappi over Rush. I mean, Jeff Driscoll is, what is that? That's like a Mike White type of addition without the game against the Bengals, right? That's what you're getting in Jeff Driscoll. And other than that, let Brady cook. Try to prove that he could be your practice squad quarterback 4. Let Bailey Zappi maybe be your emergency 3 going into the year, or Cade Klubnik is your emergency 3. And then Bailey Zappi is your quarterback 2 behind Geno Smith. And like I said before with the kicker, if Geno Smith gets hurt in week 3, we know what the season is. We know what the expectation is for the regime and the coaching staff. Like, they're probably not going to be here again. Is it imperative that they have a world-beating quarterback 2? Probably not. So just let Cade Klubnik sling it out. Now, if he's clearly not ready for the job, that's a different story. But I don't know. I have high hopes for Cade as a quarterback 2, and he's hurdling all those immediate thresholds, I guess, that he had to climb getting into the NFL.
Yeah, I think everyone needs to pray as well. I don't want to see Cade Klubnik have any significant time under center during the season. I am in the camp of develop these guys and let them see the field once you're absolutely sure that they have got it, not working on the job. So I'm hoping that Geno has an excellent season, and maybe, if we're winning games, we're up, or the game's lost, then sure, give the guy some reps there. But I don't want to see him getting trotted out week after week. That is my only concern, because we've seen it happen so many times where we just end up breaking these guys. Whether you like him or not, the same thing happened with Brady Cook. Brady Cook, by all accounts, is a very smart quarterback. And by the end of the season, he just looked shot to pieces. When he first came in, he didn't look too good, too bad. But at the end of the season, he was it was like AKA Zach Wilson all over again.
He was overwhelmed.
He was very overwhelmed.
I'll make a quick New York Knicks reference, because now that they're in the finals, they've won 11 straight playoff games on this playoff run that they've had, and their best player, Jalen Brunson, hasn't played in the fourth quarter in any of the like elimination games for the opposing team. Like he's sat the bench. So is there a scenario where Geno Smith and the Jets are up big going into the fourth quarter on an opponent and they can play Cade Klubnik? Or, the inverse, because we're the Jets and we're 4 wins going into December and you want to get 3-game sample size of Cade Klubnik being the starter in a lost season. Like those are the two circumstances that I want to see Cade in. Obviously the former would be the best when he's coming in relief and we're up big. But I do think you got to see Cade for a 2 to 3 game sample size at some point outside of just August in order to kind of see what you have and what you do with those picks in 2027, because that's going to be huge too.
I thought you mentioned Jelani Woods, tight end. He's taking full advantage of Kenyon Sadiq's injury. Sadiq would have been practicing with Zappi and Klubnik at that point. He caught multiple passes over the middle from both Zappi and Klubnik, which is quite interesting because this is what Frank Reich does, isn't it? He loves his tight ends. And obviously, Jelani Woods has played for Frank Reich before. So you could scratch out Jelani Woods' name and put Kenyon Sadiq in there at some point. Sadiq's going to see a lot of playing time when he's fit, isn't he?
Yeah, I really think so. And you have to go back about a decade to see the best Frank Reich offense when it comes to tight end usage when he was with the Philadelphia Eagles. And Zach Ertz was the leading receptions player and leading receiving yards player in 2016 and 2017 under Frank Reich, with over 800 yards in each of those seasons and 12 total touchdowns. So I know tight ends kind of have a slow build up into the NFL unless it's like a Brock Bowers or Sam Laporta type. But Kenyon Sadiq has the ability to do that, in my opinion. And obviously, once he's healthy, if they view him as the tight end 1, there's no reason he shouldn't go for like 500 to 700 yards based on the usage that Frank had his tight ends in Philly. And then obviously, Mason Taylor is still a very strong tight end too, where it's like you could put Sadiq as like a wide receiver's role and keep Mason Taylor in as your tight end, and it's still going to work out great. So I'm really high on Kenyon Sadiq. I think he's going to be tight end 1. I think he's going to have the most rookie receiving yards over Omar Cooper. So I think Frank Reich and his past stops has proven he can do it. Now him and Seth Ryan together, kind of collaborating on this offense and bringing a little bit more innovative, creative things. Get Kenyon Sadiq moving all around the formation so you can play them both. And even if it's, listed as 12 personnel, 1 running back, 2 tight ends, you can operate as if it's 11 personnel. And Kenyon Sadiq can run your 11 personnel concepts and still make it look, like a mismatch to the defense.
And then the other thing is, and as far as I'm aware, I don't think Frank Reich. I'm thinking freak as well. Kenyon Sadiq, the freak. Mm-hmm. I've manifested that into Frike now. I don't think Frank Reich has had a tight end like Kenyon Sadiq before, though. I mean, Zach Ertz is absolutely awesome player, but he's not Kenyon Sadiq. Sadiq plays a completely different version of a tight end. He can play the Y, and he's such a mismatch. Getting into that secondary, he's going to be a handful for anybody. It's almost reminiscent of like the Gronkowski type. Obviously, Gronkowski was in-line tight end, but the mismatches that Gronkowski used to have, especially against us, we could never handle him. But to be fair, there weren't a lot of defenses that could handle him. It's the same with Kelsey as well. That hybrid tight end, the big, fast guys that just get down into the secondary. So I don't think, as I say, I'm unaware that Frank Reich has had anyone like Kenyon Sadiq. So it's going to be interesting to see how he gets used. I mean, Frank Reich his mouth must be watering with the kind of schemes that he can put this guy into.
Absolutely. I'm looking up like who the tight ends were for Frank in Indianapolis. And again, it's not a comparison because this guy didn't run 4.36 and he's, a physical specimen, but Eric Ebron might be one of the closest I can think of to a Kenyon Sadiq skill set. I mean, Jack Doyle, he was kind of like emerged because of Frank Reich, I feel like, in Indianapolis. And then Hayden Hurst is absolutely nothing like Kenyon Sadiq. So they do have a rare skill set in Kenyon Sadiq at tight end, and he is more of like a wide receiver as well, but he can block his ass off. So this is definitely going to be, I guess, uncharted territory to a degree with Frank Reich. But yeah, I have confidence that, especially with the comments we've heard about the offense, that this is going to be one where the tight ends can really thrive.
Yeah. We're pushing for time here, so we'll move on. We cannot look at the standout players without mentioning Geno Smith. And just before we talk about Geno Smith, it is worth mentioning Adonai Mitchell. I think we're going to see a different Mitchell, aren't we? Because Geno Smith, he kind of fits what Mitchell needs in those big, long, deep, over the shoulder throws into the bucket. That fits Mitchell's style, doesn't it? As against last year, we didn't really get to see the best of him.
Yeah, Geno Smith is the antithesis of Justin Fields from a tendency perspective. Fields was scared to throw a forward pass. Geno will throw the ball 66 yards down the field on a frozen rope, and it might end up in his receiver's hands. It might end up in the defender's hands. Who knows? But a couple weeks ago, they put out a clip of Geno Smith uncorking one for A.D. Mitchell. And AD caught it perfectly in stride, and it was against air, no defenders or anything like that. But you see AD, after he catches it, he brings the ball in and he finishes out, his run, and he's smiling ear to ear.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, yeah, he's smiling because he's actually going to receive those balls in the game. He's not just going to get those in practice from Justin Fields on air. Geno Smith will put that ball out there for him. And that's why I'm really excited, because years past, we've tried to divvy up like 2,700 passing yards to our, 9 different pass catchers. This year, we're probably going to be dividing 3,600 yards amongst those pass catchers. So there's going to be a lot more opportunity for every single receiver. The internal hype about AD, I feel like the organization is really high on AD, plus the fact that Geno and him are going to connect on those deep passes, those explosives. I'm really excited for A.D. Mitchell, and that's probably a bit of a homer take because he has to still prove it. But A.D. was so talented coming out of Texas in his first year in Indianapolis. You listen to guys like Patrick Surtain on podcasts last year talk about some of the receivers with the best release package and get off at the line of scrimmage. Pat Surtain said A.D. Mitchell. That's good company to be in when guys like PS2 are talking about A.D. Mitchell, a guy who was traded in a kind of throwaway add-on by the Colts in the Sauce trade. And I don't know. I think there's a lot of hype and a lot of positivity leaning towards A.D. Mitchell, and the addition of Omar Cooper and Kenyon Sadiq only helps that blossom, because there's not one guy that you're able to double cover in this offense when you have 6 skill or 5 skill position players on the field that are all a threat.
So do you think that we've now found our X in AD?
I think so. He's the one of the only ones on the roster that has that X prototype build. Now they did sign Tim Patrick, who's I believe 6'5", so he can give you a little bit of that X route tree. But I do think AD is extremely more talented. Tim Patrick's best years were around COVID, before he suffered the ACL and the Achilles injuries back-to-back years. So AD's probably our X, and if it works, they save a draft pick from next year. But I feel like early expectation is they're going to add a wide receiver next year in the draft if AD doesn't hit. But yeah, he's the X, Garrett's the Z, Cooper's the slot. And then you can interchange them. Cooper can play the Z, Garrett can play the slot. If you need Tim Patrick to come in and play the the Z opposite AD, and then you have Garrett in the slot. They do have a good mix to keep them unpredictable now.
Yeah, and when you add in, I was going to bring this up earlier on when we were talking about the offensive line, but now you add in a full complement of running backs as well. So Brees is now under contract, thank God, and we've now got Braylon Allen, who looks absolutely ripped. I've seen him working out in the gym. I've seen him on OTAs, and he looks like an absolute load. And Isaiah Davis as well, who, we've got three. I'm trying to remember a time. I'm going back now probably to the 80s where we actually had a running back room as good as this, because all of them bring different skill sets, but all of them are excellent at what they do. I think go on. Sorry.
I was going to say, I'm fully on the Bray train. I'm calling it. Now, the one caveat is, because you paid Brees Hall so much, give him 75 to 80% of the running back's duties. Let the Allens and the Davises of the world just be a spell back, right? And use them in certain niche packages and roles where you can get Isaiah Davis out of the backfield as a pass catcher. You can get Braylon Allen, on an outside run or between the tackles. I feel like last year, Tanner Engstrand didn't do a great job. It felt like every time it was like 2nd and 2, 2nd and 3, 3rd and 1, it was Braylon Allen. And it doesn't always have to be Braylon Allen because it's very obvious to the defense what you're doing. So let Brees get a little bit more of the carries, and then.
Yeah, so I think that pretty much rounds all that up. Obviously, this has been very, very offensively based, and we haven't really touched on the defense. But as you know, we try getting these podcasts into a format where you can listen to it on your way from work, on your way back from work, or on your lunch. So we'll wrap this up, and we're going to focus more on the defensive side of the ball next week. And it's very, very exciting, isn't it, Dylan, what we've got on the offense? As you pointed out earlier on, there are so many different options now, both in the passing game and the running game. And we've actually got someone that can throw the damn ball.
Yeah, that's the most exciting part, is we should be a competent, average, normal looking offense in the year 2026 with Geno Smith. Now, there's obviously going to be highs and lows, but if there's a little bit more high moments than low moments, I actually feel like the Jets will be a very exciting offense to watch. And I know we'll get into defense next week, but they could equally be as exciting. So definitely come back next week and stay tuned for the defensive side. But the offense does give me a lot of optimism so far.
Brilliant. Cheers, Dylan. Are you going out and are you going to do some golf now?
Yes, I am going to hit the golf course.
That sounds good. And if you haven't seen, Dylan has shown off his awesome swing. He's a lefty and he's lofting this ball over the trees, and it's quite an entertaining video. Dylan, let people know where they can find you, brother.
Absolutely, Gus. At Dylan Tereman on YouTube, at D Tereman on Instagram and Twitter. Like Gus said, football, golf content, a mixture of both this entire summer. Come join the ride. It's been a lot of fun putting out content, and as we get closer, I mean, there's probably going to be a daily Jets content piece on the channel once we hit, August. So got to get through the summer months, but I'm really excited for what's cooking for our Jets and for all the content creators out there. I think this will be a good year for us to really blossom our channels.
Yeah, the last 2 years have been pretty brutal. So thank you to everyone that listens and watches us, all our content creators, both sides of the pond. It's without you guys tuning in and listening to us, it wouldn't be worth doing. So we appreciate it as always. But cheers, Dylan. We'll be back next week to talk all things D and certain pass rushers and certain cornerbacks who apparently aren't that big, but they play bigger. Cheers, Dylan.
All right, take care, guys.
As always, go Jets.
Y'all know what to say. On 3. 1, 2, 3.